Welcome, students. This lecture will help you to understand the fieldwork assignment that's in the course EDUC 506. The first thing you should know is that everything I'm going to tell you about can be located in the assignments folder, and within that, the fieldwork paper folder. If you click on the fieldwork paper folder, you'll find a set of instructions, a grading rubric, the link for this video, and a place to submit the fieldwork assignment. So let's look at the instructions for the assignment. The paper is worth 25% or 25 course points of your grade. It's based on 10 hours of fieldwork, but that includes planning the paper, observing, and preparing and submitting the paper. It's due December 8th. So the first thing you need to do is to arrange for a classroom or two classrooms to go in and observe in the school for 5 to 6 hours. So the observation itself should consist of 5 to 6 hours. You probably want to break this up over a couple of observations. It's a long time to observe for 5 or 6 hours, and that would necessarily include lunch and other non-academic periods. So break it up over at least a couple of observations. You need to locate a school and a classroom that corresponds to your certification area. It would be a good idea to go outside your school if you were already teaching in your school. And this is to get a diversity of experiences. When you complete your portfolio, your test stream portfolio at Mercy, we're going to be looking not only when you complete it, but along the way to make sure you're observing at different locations. In some suburban and some urban schools, in different grade levels, different kinds of classrooms. Because you cannot be a teacher and an effective observer, you may not observe in your own classroom. And this is even if you are a teaching assistant, you must go outside of your own classroom into another classroom. Again, you see that classroom every day, and so it's important to go outside of that classroom to get a diversity of experiences. It goes without saying, but I say anyway, that it needs to be an area within your certification. So, for example, if you're becoming certified in grades 7 to 12 adolescent, you can observe in a third grade classroom. And it's got to be the same subject. So if you're certifying in English or in math or in social studies, it needs to be in that subject. Please note that there's a permission to observe form on the course homepage and also in the assignments folder that you may print out and give to a teacher or an administrator. This serves the purpose of explains the purpose, and it's signed by the Dean of the School of Education. You don't need to collect this form and hand it back. It's an explanatory form meant for you to give the principal or the teacher. So once your observation is all arranged, you need to take detailed notes on the activities during the observation that relate to all types of assessment. So you're not going to just be looking at testing, and hopefully you'll go on a day when testing isn't taking place, because what we're looking for is the more formative types of assessment that you see going on in the classroom on a regular basis. So you're looking for informal, so non-graded and graded, formative, taking place during instruction. So for example, teacher questioning, classroom discussion, homework assignment, summative, if there is any summative like testing going on, performance-based, any kind of assessment, you need to be taking notes. Also take notes on the context of the observation. So how many students are there? Where's the location? What things do you see in the classroom? How many boys are there? How many girls are there? Any special education students? Some of this can be helped if you interview the teacher briefly before or after the observation. And if you do, you want to ask her questions like, do you have any special education students? How are they served? Per state requirements, this must be a separate observation that any that you use for other courses that you have taken or are currently taking. So in the past, students have tried to do what I call double dip. And the state actually, in terms of how many fieldwork hours per course, frowns upon this. So you need to make sure that this is a unique observation, that you're not using it for another classroom, and that you're writing a paper based on assessment for this observation. Also, don't duplicate any portions of other papers that you write. Oddly enough, this is considered self-plagiarism. And so you want each paper to be fresh. It's a different topic. It's a different subject. And so you want to write a fresh paper. One word of advice, these papers will be put through SafeAssign, which if you haven't seen it before, it's a software that checks for plagiarism. And it checks not only to see if it's ever been uploaded to Blackboard, but it checks it against internet sources. If it's discovered that you plagiarized or used the same observation, or if you have duplicated portions of papers, your fieldwork paper in this course may receive a 0, or you may be asked to rewrite the paper. So my advice is make sure it's a unique observation, make sure that you write about assessment, that you don't reuse portions of old papers, and you'll be good. So what should your paper consist of? Well, your paper should be 4 to 6 pages, and all APA papers, by the way, should be double spaced. And they should have citations that you're pulling from the textbook, and references, at least one, and that should be at least your textbook reference. Like all APA papers, it should have a running header. If you don't know how to do this, Google APA running header, and it's pretty easy. First, you should write about the context of the observation, the number of hours you observed, the grade level, the teacher's background, etc. It should be clear enough, a couple of paragraphs at least, that I should be able to see in my mind as I'm reading it, the classroom that you went into. Now, in the past, students have tripped up over this next part, the lesson. They've spent 3/4 of their paper describing what the teacher did for the lesson. And this should be a brief summary of the lesson, not 3/4 of your paper. So describe in a couple of paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, what did the teacher do to teach the lesson? Provide the learning standards or learning objectives. If you don't know them, ask the teacher to share them with you. The bulk of your paper is in this next portion, the use of assessment in the classroom. And so this is where you're going to describe all the assessment that you showed. Some of the things you may wish to comment on include, in what ways were your experiences similar to or different from your prior ideas on assessment before diving into the meat of this class? In what ways did the teacher use standards? How did the teacher formatively assess the students? What kinds of assessments did you see? Why did the teacher use these assessments? How often is assessment done? Why? And did you see any accommodations made for diverse learners? So that's going to be the bulk of your paper. And then you're going to write a couple of paragraphs on a reflection. Now, a reflection is different from a conclusion. A conclusion is basically a summary of the experience. But a reflection is, well, just that. You think about what you've learned. And so you might think about what surprised you, what did you learn from this that you could take into your own classroom. So a reflection is different from a conclusion. The last page should be a reference page, and you should put your textbook reference. You can find that, by the way, in the syllabus. It's perfectly formatted as an APA reference if you just want to copy and paste that. And so that would be your paper. Now, in addition to your paper you're going to upload to Blackboard as usual. But there are 2 fieldwork forms on TaskStream that you need to complete. And there's a TaskStream folder on the course homepage. You don't have to upload your paper into TaskStream, but you do need to complete the forms And they basically asked you for demographics about the school that you went to so we can really tell and drill down, are you having a diverse set of diverse fieldwork experiences as required by the state. One thing to note is that this fieldwork assignment, unlike many of the others in the course, may not be turned in late or revised, and this is because it comes late in the semester. I always recommend to students on these major assignments to print out or have the rubric nearby. And as you're writing, and especially at the end, go through and grade yourself on the rubric. So you can see, for example, I'm going to be looking at the context of your observation. Did you give me the name of the school, its location, demographic information of the students, grade level, not subject observed, number of students. And so if you left out some of that information, well, first of all, if you didn't write any of that, you would get a 0 points. If you left out some information, but you included some, I would give you 1 point. If you pretty much fully explained it all, I would give you 2 points for that. So you can step right through the rubric and see what you have to do to get full credit. You have to give me a set of learning standards or targets or objectives that the teacher used. You have to describe the lesson so that it can be followed. You have to provide a full and complete description of the types of assessment you see. Continuing through the rubric, you have to provide a thoughtful reflection. And the numbers there refer again to how many points you earned at each level. You have to provide at least one reference. You have to have few or no writing errors or APA errors, and you have to submit or upload both logs to TaskStream. That's how you get full credit for this assignment. If you go to the course management homepage, the course materials page, the same page where you see the learning modules and the assignments folder, you'll also see TaskStream information. And if you click on that TaskStream folder, you'll see everything you need to do in case your TaskStream account is not active or you need a key code. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Earlier is better, especially if you run into trouble finding or locating another school or another classroom in which to make an observation. So that's it for this lecture. Everybody have a great week.